One, and welcome to the journey. Today I have with me, well, you know I'm Reverend Bobby, but today I have with me my friend from 54 years ago when we walked onto the Morehouse campus together, Elliot Marbury. How are you doing today, Brother Elliot?
My brother, I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you. Thank you for asking and thank you for inviting me.
Oh man, listen, absolutely. I know the people with wisdom. We was talking, we was in Atlanta. I know you got some good stuff to share. Look, give the people a little bit of a snippet on Elliot Marbury.
Okay. Um, Born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. Spent my early life there. And then headed off to Morehouse College in 1970. I stayed in Atlanta for about 11 years. And then I headed out to LA in 1981. And I've been out here ever since. Basically, I worked in the telecommunications industry for many years, and I left AT&T, believe it or not, at about 18 years ago, and I've been retired since 2007.
That's an interesting story. Were you with AT&T down south before you hit out west, or did you hook up with them out there?
I hooked up with them out here, believe it or not. I don't know if you ever heard of a company called GTE. You remember them?
Yeah.
Back in the day? Yeah, I started off with them, and then I got transferred out to LA with them in 81, and then I got over to AT&T in 84.
Was it a big thing when you transferred? How did you work that out when you moved pretty much all the way across country for you?
It's really funny how, and we'll probably talk about this kind of stuff as we go forward. But I remember when I was 10 years old, I said to myself, I want to live in California. I said Los Angeles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, you say things when you're a child and you just forget all about them after a while. And I remember I looked up one day, I had probably been out here 2 or 3 years, and I said, wow, I'm out here. I didn't even remember I wanted to. So I think the universe just listened to me. And because I had a chance to go a couple of other places or to stay in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
but they said, are you willing to go? And I was single at the time. And I said, okay, yeah, okay, I'll take it. And haven't looked back. Came out here, got married. Then a few years later, got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one son who's 29. And so that's a story so far.
Well, that's a good one, but just a little thing on the universe and fulfillment of things that we say.
Mm-hmm.
Friend of mine, in fact, she was Sharon's maid of honor. We hooked back up, found each other a couple years ago. She was in New Jersey getting ready to retire. So when she got ready to retire, she retired to the middle of the desert in Nevada, outside Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Bobby, this is kind of full circle. I said, I know, Karen, because I remember back then you said you always wanted to live in the desert. And now you there. She said, yeah, I am. Only thing I got to do now is get these scorpion things in place so they don't be coming all in the pad.
Oh man, that's funny because
but I know all along the way, sometimes it was some stuff that walls you run into, that kind of stuff. What did you pull on within yourself to make it through those situational times? I know we all have a little bump in the road, and how did you make it through?
I was just thinking about something, and I'll tell you how I made it.
Well, share, Elliot, share.
Well, I was just going to sing this little song and ask you if you remembered it. We used to sing it in church. It was like, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my mother, not my father, but you remember that song?
I remember that song because when I do Hebrews, when I preach out of there and do now faith,
Mm-hmm.
it's like now faith, not yesterday's faith, tomorrow's, not your mama's, your daddy's. It's the now faith
Oh, that's it.
in you.
Right. Well, just to take a step back, I started to become a reader
Mm-hmm.
in the late 70s, and this guy gave me a book called I Dare You, and it had a lot of things that were would help you with personal growth. It was a very small book.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, matter of fact, he used to play for the Dodgers, but he was a manager in the company I was in at the time. I was probably a couple of years out of college, and I read that book, and I took on some of the challenges. Get up in the morning and do your sit-ups and your push-ups and this kind of thing. And so I did that. And then another book I read was called The Magic of Thinking Big. And that really helped. That was one of my favorite books. So I got into the habit of reading, and I still have that habit now. I love to read something every day. But the reason I was singing that song is because I learned that if I want to see a change, I need to be the change. I had a lot of personal growth to do, and I'm still trying to grow every day. But reading those two books and then a lot more books along the way always lifted me up. I laughed, Bobby. I said when I came out to California, because I was raised in the church, but when I got to college, I don't think I went to church unless I went back home.
Yeah.
That was the only church going. And I remember I was saying to myself when I came out here, I said, man, I was going to two services. I really needed some growth. I needed some help, because I needed to get back into the spiritual life. But you know, those books, those different books, and I could name a whole lot more books, really helped me in understanding that there's a higher power, there's something greater than I am
Mm-hmm.
that is always for me and never against me. So the part in the equation that I have some power over is me. And I think that's one of the way I was able to grow. But like I said, it's a process. It's a process, and it's a process that's ongoing right now, every day,
Mm-hmm.
every day.
How did you feel when you came to the realization that really and truly the only thing you have control over, the only thing you could master is yourself? How did you feel when you got that? It was like the tribulation to me.
Absolutely, absolutely, and when things happen, we still fall back into, well, why did they? No. It's you, my brother. It's you. What can you do? You don't have control over they. What can you do? So how did I feel? I think one of the things for me, Bobby, and I've never told this story publicly. I was raised by my grandfather, and he was a pretty tough old dude. And I had a story. Oh, my grandfather used to give me whippings and blah blah, and that was my sob story. And I thought it was a reason to not really go hard, early on in life.
Yeah.
I'm talking about early 20s and stuff. And I was at a training with a guy, and it's really funny. We there was like 7 or 8 of us at training, and the company had given us 2 cars to get around back to the hotel and back to the training center. But nobody liked this guy, and nobody wanted to ride in the car with him. So it'd be like 8 people in the other car and just him. But I would ride with him. I like people, right? And one day we were up at the hotel and we are out at the pool. And we were talking, and I was telling my sob story. Man, when I was growing up, my grandfather used to do this and do that and then do this. And of all people to come up with some wisdom, he said, "Yeah, I hear you, but don't hate him." And that just sort of hit me, and I was like, "What? Yeah, I don't, I don't." I was like tongue tied,
Mhm.
not thinking about that. The only person who was holding me back was me. I was blaming somebody else, and that was actually a beginning of a new start in the way I thought about life. And that's when those books started coming forward, and those kind of opportunities. So hopefully I'm not running on too much, but that was another story.
No, 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 because see, that's kind of the purpose, to share um how, you know, some of the things we did, some of the things someone could do, because, sometimes I find that people don't necessarily have the foundational, stability that, we came up with, and kind of, was like, why me? Why me? My father was the disciplinarian at Mosley and Montefiore. Of course, he a Morehouse dude. Mommy went to Spelman. But these was the two social adjustment schools in the public school system here, where you went before you touched base with Illinois Youth Commission on your way to prison.
Okay.
So the happy-go-lucky dude that y'all see, look, like was all that easy, but it gave us a lot of substance, if you will,
Hmm.
that we've been able to use in life. And I know you came to that realization, and when you did, what was the, oh wow, this I thought that was so bad actually shaped my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really funny because wherever I was always put in a leadership position. Just I like, how did I get to be president of this class? How did I get to be yeah, yeah, what? Why are they always choosing me? That's a lot of pressure. But life was saying, hey, you're worth it, and
Yeah.
obviously you have something that is valuable that people see in you. And so, yeah, how do I get to be captain of the team? That's why I was so surprised they didn't make me captain at Morehouse. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm always the captain of the
Well,
team. I didn't expect it as a freshman, but I expected it as probably a junior or a senior. You remember Captain Cleve?
yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
he was our captain, and I think we had Basil the first year.
yeah.
Let me just throw this other thing out, Bobby. And one of the things that I had heard or read somewhere that really has helped me in life is I remember either like reading it or somebody said, forgive yourself. We always would hear about forgiving others, right? Oh, you need to forgive them for that, forgive them for this. But we have to forgive ourselves. There's stuff that, if we knew better, we would have done better. But there's stuff that, we need to forgive ourselves for and know that that person who we were at that particular time, we're not necessarily that person anymore. We've grown. It
Yeah,
might have been a part of our foundation.
yeah.
But I just thought I wanted to share that with you. That is, you were saying, how people can overcome and grow. And I think forgiving yourself is one of the major ways that happens.
And I agree with you 100%. When I was coming up in ministerial training, the teacher training, spiritual training, all that kind of stuff. In one of the classes, they had us write a forgiveness letter.
Mhm.
And at first you lighten it up. Everybody, everything, that little booger there, blah, 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 until, you know, like in the story, you come to yourself, and then the rest of it was about forgiving yourself. Uh, which was a hard thing for me to do in some situational stuff. And why do you think that's so hard for us to do, is to forgive ourselves?
Well, like anything else, I think it takes time. You know, you sort of dug this ditch over time and blaming yourself for this, that, and the other. And like I said, you want to blame others as well. But I think once you understand that you need to forgive yourself, it just a light comes on, and you start to see more of the potential of who you truly are. And you understand that everybody makes mistakes. Sometimes, you know, you only can live your own life in your own head. But man, if you knew some of the mistakes that other people have made and things that they have done in their lives, it's like, oh, okay, you know, if they can forgive themselves, I'm sure I can forgive myself too. You know, so that was a big part of it. But like I said, I just wanted to share that with you about the forgiving. Um, and I think, like I said, it's an ongoing process. You know, one of the things that I do every day is I'm big on affirmations, and I'm big on just, you know, talking to myself every day, reminding myself of who I truly, truly am. You know, and the power is not outside; the power is in me. So I lock that every day, and that's just a reminder. You know, before I get the day started, man, I'm up and I'm might be walking through the house, telling myself who I truly am in health and mind and all this kind of stuff. And it really, really helps me. I don't know, and just to continue for a second,
No, go ahead.
I don't know the demographics of you know, the people who listen to this, but I would say, you know, especially at our ages, we need to understand that if not now, when? If not now, when, baby? You know, if you need to forgive yourself, give yourself. If you need to understand that it's time to live your best life, now is the time. Now is the appointed time. Take advantage of this time. And, you know, and if younger people watch it as well, you know, start early. Start going and start now. Don't wait until you're up here with the seven in front of your age, you know, like some of us. So I would say just make sure that that's one of the things that you do.
Well, I know, you know, like even with, you know, my kids, it was my daughter's birthday the other day, and you know the dynamics, you know, and their life works much different. Because I'm belly aching because she got a job, you know, and was doing real well, and they fired her, and you know, for no reason basically, and I'm belly aching sitting on the couch, and she's like, "Daddy, you know, I had 22 interviews. You know, I got three to choose from. In fact, I already chose the one I'm gonna take. And speaking of, me and the family will be in Chicago in August because that's when the, you know, the corporate convention is. And then they was here, and she's not, you know, bothered one bit. And I'm like, whoa, you know, blah 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 blah. Because it was a crazy situation. She told me they fired her and they offered her $2,500. I said, how they offer you money and they fire you?
Right.
She said, that was the thing. She said, so I called Vache, one of her girlfriends here who works state's attorney office. So they was talking back and forth. So Aaron said, well, they said they was going to give me 25 to go. I told them to give me 9.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
She said, I said, so what you come out with? She said 6. You know, and another job. So I guess all that to say, if you stick with these things and walk them all the way through, usually there's some kind of what lining within the, how they say that, within the dark cloud or something.
There's a
But
silver lining.
yeah. But it's better than what we make up in our mind, which is, you know, when you was talking about the affirmations and stuff, the discipline, telling yourself who it is, who you are, um, you know, how important is that to keep you on track? Because stuff come at us 24/7, 365, and twice on Sunday.
Every day, man. There's stuff that's going on, but when you're working on yourself, um, you learn to be calm when things are going on. You know that might not be your number one go-to for the past, but you know your mind is a little bit different. And like I said, depending on who your demographic is, you know, we have to understand that. And by the way, I was watching one of your videos, and I heard the guy say something about. I know you said something about fitting in, and I was laughing, and I said, at our ages, it's about fitting out.
Yeah,
There's no fitting in.
yeah,
There's fitting out. You know, now if taking advantage of the time to be the best you can be, because truly there's more time behind us than in front of us. So I'm just on this path or trip or whatever to live my best life now.
and I'll tell you, I've had to accept some things. You know, people say these things, wisdom and that, and you know, maybe not. You know, I tell my girlfriend, I said, this more I got my face kicked in and wisdom and brilliant and stuff. I said, I've just learned to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And I look at us, we the expert at something because we done got a lot of time in here and stuff. And I think we need to own these things, but sometimes we don't look at ourselves that way. Is have the affirmations and that kind of stuff helped you in that different view of yourself as we traverse this life from state to state to state to state to state?
Well, one of the beautiful things is, Bobby, once you look at yourself and, like I said, forgive yourself and all, it's easier to understand how others act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's easier to not judge so much.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say, man, when I was getting married, I was telling my future wife, I said, now, you know, one of my things is I judge people. I judge stuff. You know, I'm always judging something, you know, but I am so much better at that now. You know, when you see a person throwing some trash on the street or whatever, you say, why'd you do it? Hey, he's doing what he's doing. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
It's your business, you know.
that
Always
part.
jumping into that kind of stuff. So it's the world changes as I change, and the way I
Yeah,
view of
yeah,
the world is different than it was probably 10 years ago.
yeah,
You know, talking about blame, just to sort of throw this out there. Like I said, I got divorced, but uh, I don't blame her, and I don't blame me. You know,
yeah,
and this is hopefully she's not listening. This is the best time of my life.
yeah, yeah.
It's been a great.
It was like, stuff happened with me and Sharon. We ended up, separating, divorcing and stuff. But, when she was making the transition, Brandon called me
Mhm.
and said, if you want to see her, you need to get here now. So I went out and, was back and forth and being in there. And Paige had come got me one day and then took me back, dropped me off. I had about 2 hours in there with Sharon by myself.
Mhm.
And in just those 2 hours, just the talking like that, because she couldn't talk and stuff, but she caught me up on almost 20 years of them in LA, even though I had been close and stuff. But
Right.
she caught me up, and what I experienced, Elliot, was unconditional love.
Mhm.
Not that nobody told me about,
Mhm.
not about that I read in no book, but the unconditional love I was there experiencing with Sharon, that whatever went on between us was totally unimportant between us. And it changed my life in that moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because it opened me
Yeah. Yeah.
to um to experience. that kind of love. And when your life did change, take a shift, probably for the better in your eyes. What did you think about yourself and the work that you've done on yourself?
Oh, the beautiful thing about that whole time I was married, Bobby, is I never stopped my reading, my studying, my affirmations, and all that. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to continue that. To build my library. To how we used to listen to the tapes, the audio tapes. Les Brown and all that kind of stuff. So that was a great foundation for me. I was doing it before I got married, and I was doing it after, and I still do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm on this learning thing, man. I read a little bit of Shakespeare every morning, a little bit of Black history every morning, a little bit of something that inspires me. And like I said, I'm retired, so I can do that kind of stuff. Let me throw this out, Bobby. By the way,
Throw it out. I got it. I'm gonna catch it.
um, some people talk about, and this is sort of going in a different direction a little bit.
Go.
Some people talk about, the mind tries to do this to us. The mind tries to do this. The mind does this. And I look at it in a different way. I see the mind as a servant, but the mind is never trying to hurt us or make us do anything that
No.
that we shouldn't be doing. It's a servant, and it brings up ideas, and sometimes it goes in a direction that you've been going like 20 years. Like you say, well, why is my mind? Well, it's just trying to serve you because that's what you like to do. You
Mm-hmm.
like to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to blame my mind. I see it as a servant, and that's one thing I do in the morning. I thank my mind for for the service it brings, but I know the final decision and all this stuff is up to me. So
That's it.
there's a way to use the mind just like the body as a servant. It's all here to serve us.
Mm-hmm.
You and we're that soul or spirit or whatever that's looking out and observing. But isn't it a beautiful thing that we have the strength and we have the power?
That's
There's a song that this guy used to sing in church, and I don't think he actually wrote the words, but one of the things it says, we are the one we've been looking for.
yeah.
We're the one we've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be blaming mind, other people, whatever. Whatever is in you, and you can do whatever you need to do.
And that's the point, because it's in you to allow to freely flow forth. And as it freely flows forth into your life, into the universe, into the ether, that's the very thing that returns to you, pressed down, shaking together, and running over. So if you get some jelly wick, it's because that's what you on. Look, we almost at the end of this journey, but Elliot, I enjoyed you, but give the people something, give me something to hold me till the next time we get a chance to do this.
Well, let's just go back with the mind, okay? I'll tell you a quick story, and then you can probably relate to it. Back in the day, I've been a vegan or plant based for a long time, but but they had Burger King had some veggie burgers, and every now and I go by there and get some veggie burger and some fries or whatever. And I had said, I'm going to stop doing that. I don't need to be eating that, right? This is about 20 years ago. So I'm coming down Wilshire Boulevard, and I see Burger King over there to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. So then I go down, and as I pass by it, what my mind said? Hey, there's another one right down the street here. You can turn on the right. I was like, whoa. I could have blamed my mind for trying to do something to me. All it was trying to do is serve what it knew that I normally like to do. So don't blame the mind. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We're the ones who are in control of this thing. Things are going to happen. It's like, do your push-ups and all that, mental push-ups to build yourself up daily, because things are going to come up. and how you handle it is up to you. Last thing I'll say is this:
Uh-huh.
this guy used to come on the radio, and his title of his show was "Think a Second Time."
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so impulsive to act on that first thought.
Mm-hmm.
Think a second time, and a lot of times you'll make a much better decision.
That's
brother.
real true. And I'll just go hit you about this the second Burger King. See, you talk about it's the man trying chicken. Most people would say it ain't nothing but the devil.
Yeah.
Elliot, I enjoyed you, man. God bless you. We're gonna do this again. Everyone, this is Reverend Bobby. I'm glad you was here for the journey today with me and my good friend Elliot Marbury. Elliot, you take care. You hear?
Much love, my brother.
And I'll talk with you soon.